feature design in MENA, Middle East and North Africa 101, everything you wanted to know. So my name is Hannah. I'm one of the design associates here in Crystal Fountains, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. So today's webinar is being presented by Crystal Fountains. Before I introduce the two speakers, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. So today's webinar is being recorded. We'll be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it with your colleagues. We also invite you to your comments and questions. If you look at the Q&A chat box on your screen, you can scroll down or you can chat on the right-hand box. You can think of a question for the speaker at any point. You can just type it there, and we'll either pose it to the speaker at the time or hold it for the discussion portion at the end of the event. So today's presenters are Robert Mikula and Mustafa Fazi. Rob is a director of creative design in our Toronto office. Rob is a registered landscape architect with his expertise and derived from over 20 years of experience in design and project management of high-profile international water feature commercial projects. He has worked in a number of successful projects that includes World Voices, Burj Khalifa residence in Dubai, Washington Harbor in the US, Dubai Expo in the UAE, and Royal Princess Cruise Ship. Mustafa is a director of design and operations in our Dubai office. Mustafa has focused on a diverse range of high-profile international water feature commercial projects in the MENA region, with his extensive involvement in water feature consulting services, system design, construction coordination, and on-site startup supervision. Some of the notable projects that Mustafa has collaborated on are Expo Dubai 2020 in UAE, Cairo Festival City in Egypt, Mushrif Station in Qatar, Cabinet Building or New Administration Capital in Egypt. So at this time, I'm going to hand over the floor to Rob.
Thanks, Hannah. First of all, good afternoon to everyone. I hope all are safe and well. Welcome to our first webinar in a series concerning the MENA region and water feature design. A little background about Crystal Fountains to begin. We are a Canadian company. We were established in 1967. Our first major piece was a fountain at Montreal's Expo 67. Today, obviously, we're known as Water Feature Specialist Manufacturer and as a specialist design team. Where we're located, obviously, our head office is in Toronto. We have two satellite offices, one in Warsaw and one in Dubai. We're actually also about to open another satellite office in Cairo, and that will serve as our engineering production studio. As a company, we touch over 700 water features and water feature projects a year. Our first work in the region of MENA began about 1991, and since then we've collaborated on over 250 projects to date. A little bit about what we're going to talk about today. The purpose of today's session is to simply provide an overview of our experiences in the region, and we really hope that that is beneficial to everyone one way or another. We have three main topics actually, and if we have time, we'll talk about what's next, but essentially the three main ecosystems, what we call in the region, the working ecosystem, the design ecosystem, and the construction ecosystem. And again, we'll try to touch on what's next as well. This webinar, by the way, is also including several poll questions that could be answered from the comfort of your own home, which probably many of you are at this point. And that actually reminds me, here's the first poll question.
So throughout the webinar, well, to make it more interactive, we have some poll questions prepared for you to answer and listen as you're listen to the speaker as you answer the question. You can see the top green bar that's going to come up to the screen. You can click vote now, and then it'll go to the poll in the bottom, or you can simply scroll down. So the first question that we have is that what profession are you in? So I'm going to post the poll right now. You'll see the green bar that's going to appear. You can vote now. And as we get the responses going, we're going to continue our presentation to the first topic, the MENA working ecosystem, that I will hand it over to Mustafa.
Thank you, Hannah. Hello, everyone. So starting off, I've been working in the MENA region my entire life, 10 years as a contractor in Egypt, a specialist contractor for water feature design and build work. And for the past 5 to 6 years, I've been in Dubai working on mega projects in the water feature design with crystal fountains. And the first topic I want to start with in MENA is navigating the hierarchy. Working in the Middle East is quite challenging. So a typical hierarchy in the MENA region would be a developer or owner like Imar, the Al-Dar, or an owner like the government, municipalities, Mubadala, Dubai Municipality, ADM. They would hire an architect, probably a Western architect through competition or tender. And basically, that architect will come up with the concept for the master plan and the theme of the whole project. The scope for the architect tends to end there and immediately goes into the main consultant scope to do the feasibility study and then go on to hire his sub-consultants. If he doesn't have a landscape division in his company, he would hire a landscape architect who will in hand hire the aquatic designers. So after the design is finished, it's tender to general contractors. The general contractor will hire a specialty contractor for the water features. And after the build, it's handed over to the operator. So one of the things that you need to keep in mind here is understand who's the decision maker, being it the developer or the architect. Sometimes the owner, being it a sheikh or something, really has his hand into the design process. So you need to be aware of some of your decisions there. And you need to also develop some good relationships between the different hierarchies. So being in good relation with the main consultant and developer will always help you. Respect the cultural differences. Again, it's a different than the Western community, the working in MENA especially. You need to keep in mind that it's very important for the consultants to be, for the architect first to be in direct control of the concept with the main consultant and the feasibility study, and for the landscape architect and aquatic designer to be in control of hiring the contractor and specialty contracting and doing site supervision. Moving on into a MENA heat map we prepared. So quickly going into the Middle East and North Africa, the biggest market we have with the largest number of projects is Saudi Arabia, of course. It's the front and center, it's booming. This is a future geared towards Vision 2030 initiative by His Royal Highness Sheikh MBS Mohammed bin Salman. And then you have UAE, where you have mainly Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which is where they are a little sensitive to fluctuations of market status. So currently in the COVID pandemic, with the recession, things are slowing down. However, we're expecting things to ramp back up once the COVID calms down a little and they open up the Expo 2020. For the rest of the Emirates and the UAE, occasional large projects happen every now and then. The next country, you have Qatar. You have plentiful of opportunities there because of the World Cup in 2022, I think. And it's good to invest some business development time there. However, you need to understand there is some problems between Qatar in UAE and Saudi Arabia, which might create some problems in your business development. Then you have Egypt, which has plentiful of opportunities. However, it's a high risk, high reward environment. The main reason for that is that most of the projects are now under government or military scope. Then we have Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, and Morocco, which most of the time they're slow-moving economies. You get a couple of large projects every now and then, but in general, not consistent type of work. And of course, the rest of the MENA are not in a position to really consider for water feature design. Moving on to our next poll question, Hannah.
Yes, so we have a next poll question coming up. As Mustafa talked about different regions, we're gonna ask like, which MENA region do you work in primarily? So the poll question is just gonna come up. You'll see the green bar at the top of your screen. You can vote now, or you can scroll down to answer the question as we move on to the presentation. Take it away, Mustafa.
Hey. Thank you, Hannah. So the first question is a kind of sensitive one: accounts receivable. What's happening with accounts receivables in the MENA? So the payment terms and the contract terms are always tough for the MENA region. Developer or owner always puts down a tough project contract for the main consultant, which results to the fact that almost 95% of all sub-consultancy contracts in MENA are now what's called back-to-back payment, meaning that the main consultant will not pay the subs until they get paid by the owner. And typically that would be 30 days after the payment from the owner comes down to the main consultant. So back-to-back contracts for sub-consultancy, tough terms for the main consultants, a lot of paperwork. It's very important if you're a sub-consultant or a main consultant to have good relationship with the developer and owner. Of course, expect delays in payment in the MENA region. In general, when you're signing a contract, focus on the scope of work, plan the resources, and read between the lines for the terms and conditions of the contract. The better contract you have, the better you can make it for their subs and your team. Otherwise, you're going to be basically find yourself in a position where it's less than adequate argument.
And with that, we have another poll question coming up of which payment terms are you most familiar with? So I'm going to post it right now. You will see a green bar at the top of your screen that you can vote now, or you can scroll down to answer the question. And we will continue our conversation in the winning strategy.
Okay. So moving on to a winning strategy. So in MENA in general, you need to understand the culture, the architecture, the ideas of the wadi, the oasis in the desert, to understand how the different countries differ in their culture as well. So understanding the culture, understanding the sustainability requirements. So I know that many of the GIGA projects in KSA now require LEED Platinum ratings. So we need to keep that in mind when you're designing to meet these KPIs, and always deliver on deadline. I actually have a specific topic to talk about for the deadlines. Moving on to the next slide, Hannah. So it's the #1 unspoken rule in consultancy. Missing the deadline is not an option. Make sure how to avoid that. Make sure that you get the project schedule which is realistic. Make sure you have the resources for whatever schedule you agree on. Most of the time, that schedule and deadlines are not forced on you by the main consultant or even the owner. It's involved with the stakeholders or owners or chairman of the company that's going to attend the presentation that you prepare on these in these projects and milestones. And then we come to our third, sorry, hand over to
Rob is going to take over the MENA design ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. As a designer, having been exposed to many MENA projects over the last 15 years, there are definitely specific challenges and exciting opportunities that are essentially the reality of working in this region. Let's start at the beginning of the design process. We first need to be aware of the project planning framework. That's the norm in the region. In the early days for projects like Burj Khalifa, we generally follow the typical AIA design process format, SD, DD, CD. It seemed pretty straightforward for ourselves. However, in the past few years, we've seen a shift to the British system of project process. This is called REBA. Some people call it RIBA, and there's other pronunciations, but I call it REBA. It's a project planning framework, and it presents some different challenges as compared to the traditional AIA style framework. In particular, be aware of the extra deliverables expected in what we would typically identify as the water feature SD stage. Of note also is that REBA and the REBA system is now considered very robust, and it also recognizes various procurement methods like design build, sustainability obviously, and BIM Revit. BIM Revit is very much part of our world these days, and probably for most of you out there as well. I created a little chart just to compare the traditional AIA with the REBA system. There's a lot of similarities, but as you can see, that stage 2 for us is where it stands out as something different, especially something we're not used to in North America. I put together a typical package here. This is one we did a few years ago, Saturday Island, and this was actually an SD package for us, which is their stage 2. The expectation is that a significant amount of water feature engineering calculations must be done at this stage. The next 3 drawings, I just pulled 3 drawings from that package, and you can see a lot of numbers there. So it's kind of like a challenge to balance the early stage unknowns with the need for realistic budget estimates. It also means that we're getting involved with other engineers and other disciplines very early on in the design process, much earlier, I would say, than in North America. So just be prepared for that, because obviously that means increased hours, and with respect to billing, it can become an issue. Here's another poll question.
And with that, we have another poll question coming up as we discuss different planning stages. The question is, which planning stage practices are you more familiar with? So I'm going to pose it right now, and then you can see the green tab that you can vote now or scroll down to answer the question. I see that some people are having some troubles with audio. You can check your settings when you see a little tab there, and try to try different settings of like maybe different speaker outputs, and to see if that will work. All right, and then we will move on to our next topic, which is the MEGA and GIGA projects.
Yeah, so thanks, Hannah. It's really important to understand the types of projects we're running into now. It started with a mega style project such as Burj Khalifa and King Abdullah University a few years ago. These obviously are much larger projects, and they changed how we work as design professionals, and in our case as manufacturers as well. We're talking about extremely different order of magnitude of project when it comes to mega and giga project. Mega projects, by definition, they're large scale, complex ventures, typically cost $1 billion or more, take many years to develop and build, involve multiple public and private stakeholders. They're transformational. That's really important because there's such a long duration. They actually evolve, and most importantly, they impact millions of people, because essentially, in a lot of cases, you're building new cities and what have you. These are unique in terms of their level of aspiration, the lead times, the complexity, and the stakeholder involvement. All of these factors impact you as a designer, as a design firm, because it means more time, more dedication required to dealing with many different groups, as unlike a traditional project. And obviously, giga projects take it to the next level. Here's a quick map. I'm not going to get into detail here, but they identify some of the key projects, especially on the left side of Saudi Arabia, the west side of Saudi Arabia. Those are what we call the giga projects. Some on the right are more mega style projects, but Mustafa will touch on that later on. The most rewarding aspect about these type of projects is that they're generally trying to push the envelope in what is designed and what is built. There's always a sense that this client, the client we're working with, wants something that's never been done before. We hear it all the time. We want to, yeah, and as a result, we often have to use materials that are new, but we use them in often a wonderful way. Of course, this is like a double-edged sword. This is a great example of challenging the norm. Working with the late Eric Kuhn and his team at Civic Arts, one of many innovative designs included this unique water wall. We spent many months developing an architectural framework and engineering system that could do what seemed almost impossible. However, finally, budget realities forced us to design a more simplified rear water wash. But the one thing that was always present is the element of splash. And that's our nemesis as water feature designers, splash. It's often our biggest challenge, but I won't get into that. Here's several other examples of our innovative design collaborations. Often what appears to be simple or basic are indeed significant challenges for many reasons. And this is also a reason to investigate new materials and applications. Here we go, and as such, you know, physical mock-ups are a major part of designing any of these custom water features. The key word is custom. These are typically, the mock-ups are typically paid consulting missions that range for us historically from anywhere from USD 5K to $65,000 US, depending on the project. The most amazing part, though, is that we sometimes discover new results and ideas, and we love this. This is a great example of that. What we call the water void. We discovered this working on Burj Khalifa Tower Park and Island Park before it was changed over in around 2008 to 2010. We came upon this idea for a passive negative water effect. I think there'll be a video now, yeah. Hopefully you can see it and it's not too choppy. However, what we did is developed a series of shapes within a reflecting pool. The ability to draw the water down or add water to those shapes allowed us to reveal these forms. Really, really very interesting expression of water, and is especially effective in an interior environment where you've got certain light conditions and what have you. But it's something we really, really want to implement sometime in the future, because this never happened for us. We have been exploring this. In fact, the next video will show you we took basically this concept and developed a small version of this, basically almost a commodity piece that we call water pixels. I'm not sure if that video is choppy for you, but essentially it's doing the same thing, this time in a small scale, and it reveals the water, the forms in the water as the water is drawn down or even pushed up out of the form. Creates really cool effects. Go on to the next one. Yeah, and obviously the other half of exploring and understanding custom water features is utilizing digital physics-based simulation technology. So we created a proprietary software called WaterLab. What we do is called proof of concept studies with WaterLab. Because it's physics-based, it's able to express water and light in a very accurate manner. We've developed hundreds of WaterLab simulations to explore water feature ideas in MENA projects over the years. I think we have another video for you here. Let's press that. Maybe it's a little choppy. Is it?
We already did.
Oh, you already did?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Miscommunication. Okay, aesthetics. You know, there are definitely some common themes and driving cultural aspects that make MENA a unique place to design water features. Arabic or Islamic design differs from place to place and is expressed in different vocabularies and materials that are available in each country. As we understand it, Islamic design and Arabic design are not necessarily the same. Furthermore, we've also seen that increasing use of modern Western styles of form and architecture, especially in the Dubai region. You know, kind of as such, I only wanted to summarize some of the common aspects that we've experienced in MENA over the last few years. Probably the most recognized geometry we've worked with is the lotus form. We've used this geometry for both interactive and non-interactive water features. Calligraphy and natural references are also a common theme as well. So the beauty and elegance of these forms can create some challenges when it comes to fabrication or material availability, obviously. Often these elements are completely custom, as we explained, but this often leads to increased costs and lead times with respect to preparing mock-ups and obviously executing final construction of project. It also generally requires more skilled labor. So as designers, keep those things in mind. Obviously, the client wants the biggest and best, or the something that's never been seen before, but certainly that has implications. For the materials, obviously materials and finishes are key to a successful water feature outcome. I wanted to touch on 3 such materials. The photograph you see on the right is one of 2 identical triangular pools we did at the Burj Khalifa with Jaume Plenza and SOM. This reflecting pool uses black absolute granite. Obviously, it's an interior environment. While this black absolute granite creates a great background and is an interior environment, it may not be the best material to use for an exterior environment. And for obvious reasons, it's due to the extreme temperatures that are very common in this region. Here's an example of some prominently lighter paving material we used for Rouge Sharif Central Park.
Rob, it's actually called Al-Imarat in Arabic, or Mother of the Nations.
This is another thing with MENA projects. They change names all the time. So another material we use a lot of is 316L stainless steel. So it's a higher grade stainless steel, very important for harsh environments. We do a lot of this for marine grade as well on cruise ships. So that's something to keep in mind, higher cost point, price point as well. And finally, a different material we explored over the last couple of years is translucent concrete. Fantastic opportunities with this material. Here we developed a channel system. We underlit it with linear lights, and it actually illuminates, obviously in the evening. It creates an incredible display, very unique and very interesting. Obviously great when combined with LED technology as well. Fog. Well, our main goal in this region is to, we want to make a public space as comfortable as possible. And certainly the element of fog can help to increase the perception of comfort within any microclimate. The fact is, fog ticks off some of the boxes important to the MENA design, that being sustainability and thermal comfort. From a creative standpoint, nothing can match fog in changing the character of a space. This high pressure, low consumption effect can do a nice job at modifying the temperatures of a microclimate, and in fact, creating a microclimate that feels more comfortable relative to the surrounding hot space. This has actually been scientifically proven through heat indexes. The fact is, adding fog to an urban space results in a lower temperature and, more importantly, a more comfortable environment for people. It's due to evaporative cooling, and it's counterintuitive when you understand that it actually increases the relative humidity, but in fact lowers the temperature, thereby creating a more comfortable environment. Actually, here's some examples. Increasingly, over the last couple of years, we've been developing designs with fog, especially for the MENA region. I think we have a video for you at this point.
Actually, there is a funny story about one of these mock-ups that we prepared, Rob. I think it's gonna come up right now.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Thanks, Mustafa.
Yeah. So one of these mock-ups was we built here in Dubai for a client inspection, and the client didn't like it. This is the mock-up I'm talking about, in one of the entrances for one of the projects. And the official reason for canceling this water feature was it might obscure the visibility in the CCTV security system. However, we knew that the unofficial reason was it might mess up ladies' makeup.
Or men's makeup, you know.
Okay.
Men do wear makeup, by the way, Mustafa.
Yeah. So with that, we have another poll question coming up of your experiences working with fog. Have you worked with fog effects before? So I will pose the question right now. You'll see a green tab, and you can vote now, or you can scroll all the way to the bottom to answer the question while the presentation is still going on. And then we're going to explore a different design ecosystem of designing with sand in MENA region.
Yeah, so sand, you know, that's our nemesis in the region. You know, it's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to water features in particular, obviously. It impacts everything from reservoirs to components to finishes in a very dramatic way. This picture on the left, I love it. It's actually a photograph from our severe testing lab in Toronto, where we kind of apply some extreme conditions. There's a lot of sand, as you can see, but the light's actually penetrating through that sand. It's great. But the point of this is that it allows us to understand how sand interacts with the components. And in some cases, we will change materials. That inset photo on the top there is a moving part that we change the materials on, change the dimensions on to accommodate for this sand disturbance. Obviously, it's a challenge, and sometimes it's up to us as manufacturers to come up with some solutions. On the other hand, the solution is could be partly with increased attention to maintenance. So that's something to keep in mind. Maintenance is usually a larger factor. It takes a larger dollar value proportionally to maintain a water feature in that region when you have, you know, a sand element to deal with. The other issue is reservoirs and the storage of water. These two photographs illustrate two ways we can store water. On the left, we have a completely isolated reservoir that's sitting in an equipment room, completely separate from the water feature. On the right, we store water here in a suspended paver system. We have boson jacks supporting suspended stone pavers in this case with open joints. There is water stored under that. The advantage or the disadvantage to the right side situation is that we're dealing with maintenance staff. Maintenance staff typically are lazy. They don't want to do something that takes a lot of the effort. In fact, they won't do it enough. And if that reservoir needs to be cleaned more often, they may either not do it very often, or when they do it, they may break pavers. So it's important to consider that. So in MENA, typically, we will specify reservoirs over stored water under an interactive water feature, just for that reason alone. I'll pass it on to Mustafa. He'll talk about the construction ecosystem.
Thank you, Rob. So the first topic I wanted to touch on for the construction ecosystem is the budgeting. Water feature is a luxury. So it's the first thing that goes out once a decision to make a value engineering exercise comes in. So it's easier to just, okay, I'm canceling the water feature and put a planter instead of it. So it's good for the consultant, the architect, to explain why the water feature is there, the design intent, the purpose of the space to the client, and make sure that this effect is carried through. There's also sustainability requirements in MENA now because of the fact that water is a scarce resource, and of course understanding the site, if it's on a structure, slab on grade, or the interactivity of the feature. So the three things that you need to budget for, even early on, when you have a blue dot on a master plan, you need to first give the client an idea of what the capital cost is going to be, the maintenance cost, and the operating cost in terms of energy, water, and chemicals, because they might affect the decision of the water feature scale. Moving on to the next topic, we have the quality of the specialist contractors. In general, there are fewer experienced contractors, especially in the water field industry in the region. Very few good contractors in each country. So the best way to basically source them out is previous project experience, portfolios, pre-qualifications, actually calling references in their portfolios to make sure that projects that they executed are well maintained or no issues coming out from them. And of course, in your specification, write the performance expectations of the water feature for that to tie the contractor to your vision. Next, we have the quality of the material. Of course, it's a given sense that the client will always look for the best price. However, the mentality is slowly changing into the fact that, yeah, the cheapest is not always the best. Quality is important. So always seek quality material. Easiest way is just look for a UL, ETL, or CE listing for the material, especially the light fixtures or electrical equipment, of course, and the IP rating and the wet-dry operation of the feature of the lights. And of course, create tight specs. So the tighter the specs, the less way room for the contractor to play with. Last topic I want to talk about is site supervision, and this is where I talked before about early on in the hierarchy. It's really important for the consultant or the designer to carry on the site supervision scope. I'll give you a quick example in this case. In a project we visited last year in Case A called Riyadh Front. It's a luxury open-air style mall. The developer hired a reputable large consultant to design the concept, and then that developer took the design and just issued it out for a design and build. And he brought in, to his experience, the best specialist contractor in KSA. However, even if that contractor has the best experience to execute this concept perfectly, the lack of client-side supervision allowed for some serious design flaws. And actually, after the client saw the results, he started reaching out to the same consultant to try and come and make some snag list of the water features. But yeah, it's already too late. It's either you accept it or redo it. There's no middle ground there. A quick example in this photo, you have dry deck feature concept. The contractor just made these custom stainless steel inlets, that have a very sharp edge to them, very dangerous for bare feet, which is counterintuitive. Kids will be playing with bare feet in this interactive water feature. The next photo we have is the same feature. They basically didn't do a pump room. They did something called a pump pit, where you have a large pit that's 1 meter deep with all the equipment in it, filters, panels, pumps. And of course, this is a really, really lazy design. Pump rooms can be further away from the water feature. And of course, this is really inconvenient for the operator, because every time he needs to maintain this water feature, he needs to open all these 4 slabs. Next photo, we have a quick example of poor design. Chlorine tablets in the suction of the pumps. You have no control over the chemistry of the water feature. And that's what's causing all these algae growth and dirt in the system. So how to avoid that? Shop drawing reviews, material submitted reviews, and of course, regular site inspections.
Thanks, Mustafa. So what's next in the region? Obviously, we started to touch upon the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the GIGA projects. that are going on. Mustafa will kind of elaborate. He's closest to that region, obviously, and he's had a lot of meetings with groups for these GIGA projects. So he's going to enlighten you a little bit about what's being done in that part of the world. Mustafa?
Thank you, Rob. So again, Vision 2030, that's the main topic of the developments that are happening now in the kingdom. So the big focus is basically on the western border and north border of Saudi Arabia. You're going to find here they're focusing on resorts and cities that are based on or overlooking the Red Sea as a critical pathway or navigation way for ships between Asia and Europe. So you have the biggest project of them all is NEOM, which is the new smart city of the future that's planned with $500 billion worth of investment. It's in the north border with Jordan and Egypt, and it has a lot of potential for projects and large-scale projects in general. Next, we have Amala. Again, it's geared towards ultra-luxury wellness, fitness, tourism. It has like multiple developments, triple bay, huge investment in this project. Next, we have Qiddiya in next to Riyadh. It's a let's say mega project, basically futuristic city that has projects in them like Formula One. Six Flag has like the best or the highest or fastest roller coaster is going to happen there. Of course, it only happens in MENA. Next, we have the Red Sea Resort. Basically, we have TDRS Red Sea, the Red Sea development company. They have Shuraira Island. They have like a long development along the beach in front of that mega project. And of course, we are fortunate enough to be involved in most of these projects in Saudi Arabia. So feel free to reach out to us if you're working in the area or if you need more information via these contacts. And I'll give it back to Hannah. Muted. Hannah?
It was muted. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you, Mustafa. Thank you for sharing, and Rob for sharing your insight. We actually have several questions that have been submitted by the audience. And as a reminder, if you have any questions that you have yet to submit, please enter in a Q&A chat box, and then we will get through as many questions as possible. I will actually ask one of the questions here. One is, how do you manage time constraints between North America and MENA? There's about 8 to 9 hours of time difference in the Eastern time. So Mustafa or Rob, do you guys want to tackle any of that?
It'd definitely be challenging. Yeah, I think the main thing is planning ahead. Obviously, there are issues that come up, and the flexibility of our schedules is another thing. Mustafa, sometimes he's up all night and sleeps all day. Sometimes I'm up all day and sleep all night. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. But yeah, it's just basically being flexible with your schedule as well. Mustafa, have anything else?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of working with our own team between the Dubai office and the Toronto office was of course a challenge. But since we're already here in MENA, we can handle basically the time zones because we handle the clients all day, and then towards midday to end day, we can relay all information to our Toronto office. However, if you don't have existing offices in the MENA region, you need to be flexible, as Rob said, with the with the timing. Sometimes you need to sometimes you need to work at ungodly hours of night to basically attend a meeting with the client in the MENA.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a challenge.
It's a challenge, but we're making it work, right?
Yeah.
So the next question is actually, can translucent concrete be used as a structure, or must be supported by the standard concrete? Maybe this is something that Rob can answer about it.
Both of us, actually. Mustafa even has some experience over the last few months in situ, but generally it's not a structural element. It's a decorative element for the most part. Mustafa, maybe you can elaborate on that.
It's
There's a
mainly
walkover
used as furniture, street furniture, just cladding works. It's not meant as a element carrying load or anything like that. It's mainly meant as a architectural piece or a beauty piece.
Yeah, that said, it's okay to use it on the ground plane for people just walking over it, for sure. We've used it in a couple occasions that way, successfully. So, yeah.
All right, we'll take a look at the next question. I think it's regarding the payment plans that we have been talking about. Do you recommend charging the scope up front?
No one will agree to that.
Go for it. Because the fee will be too high. We won't get the job. It's a challenge, right? It's a juggling act, I would say. Mustafa?
Yeah. And I mean, the better your reach and influence with the client, the better the contract will be. So of course, if you have the leverage to get a better contract, you will make yourself in a much better position, and your subs as well.
Yeah, he touches upon an important thing, is relationships. So relationship building is more important there than anywhere else in the world. It's important everywhere, obviously, but especially in the MENA area, and having, feet on the ground, like our Dubai. That's the reason we have a Dubai office, because we absolutely need to have feet on the ground. We need to be in the room when decisions are made. We need to make relationships with the right people, and all that. That all helps your cause with respect to payments, with respect to contracts, all that stuff. So while relationships are important for everywhere in the world, they're especially important in Dubai or in MENA.
Maybe we will tackle on the next question. Is speaking Arabic a requirement in working in MENA?
It's not a requirement, but it's not a requirement at all. Now, in general, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, even KSA is they're all bringing in a lot of the talents from the Western countries. You have a lot of British, American, and all sorts of nationalities working in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. The common theme is everyone speaks English, so it's not a necessity. And because KSA is now pulling in all the resources from the UAE, they're also turning into this culture of it's okay to speak English. So all the big development companies in the KSA now, Red Sea, Amala, all these guys are taking talents from the UAE that are already experienced in the market, already know how to navigate the system, and hiring them in their development and companies. So speaking Arabic is not mandatory, but it is a good thing to have. So definitely, if you can hire Arabic-speaking personnel, yeah, that's always going to help at some point if you need to make good relations with the owners or something like that.
All right, the next question that we have is, how prevalent is Revit as a design medium? Is it a common requirement?
It's slowly becoming the norm now. It used to be just sporadic, only the big projects require Revit, but almost now all projects that are coming in RFPs are coming with BIM 360 and Revit requirements.
Yeah, and from Toronto, and yeah, Revit is almost an everyday part of our tools these days. It's getting there. So, and it's an important part, especially in water features, because they're mostly quite complex. And understanding the piping and conduit systems actually goes a long way into simplifying things down the road. So, yeah, big thing.
All right, so we have a last question here. If you guys still want to submit the question, we have a few more minutes, so you can submit it and then we'll answer right after this question here. Are contracts typically paid in local currency or is it being paid in USD usually?
It depends on the project, but most of the government projects are paid in the local currency. So all projects for RECEIVABLE, all projects for let's say DIWA or Dubai municipality, all are in the country's current currency. Again, it depends on your reach. If you have an office here, you have a bank account, it's always easier to get the payments that way. That doesn't mean that they don't allow for transfer overseas or something like that. They do, but then you have the exchange rate difference.
Hey, Mustafa, I don't know, we had an issue with VAT at one point where we discovered we had to pay VAT, and there's a whole series of implications there with respect to getting representation and all that. But I've noticed lately that
withholding tax as well in
VAT on our invoices.
Yeah. So we invoice VAT in the UAE. We have withholding tax, I think, in KSA. However, the main consultant always handles the withholding tax for KSA because we typically only one entity handles all the VAT and taxes. Here in the UAE, it's different. We're paying our VAT because we already have an establishment here, so we pay the VAT for our contracts.
All right, so we have a few more questions that came in. The one is, what is the percentage of a mixture of private versus government work?
In the UAE, it's almost 70% developers, Imar, the MAC, and so on, Aldar. KSA is mainly government now. Very few, I think, developments or of the mega projects. Maybe the smaller projects, there are developers that are doing the funding, but all the major cities or major projects that we mentioned before, Amala, Sea, NEOM, Green Riyadh, and multiple other projects are funded by the government.
All right, so we have our last question here, and then we'll wrap it up here. So the last question is, in KSA, material availability is a big challenge for us as a small contractor, and we need to import it. And there's no warranty also. So do you have any issues in UAE as well?
No, UAE is very open, I guess, in relation to KSA. Very minor issues we faced in exportation in general. However, I know that KSA, there are some limitations. You have SABR now. It's a new rule, a new law that's passed for KSA government to make sure that the quality of the material coming into Saudi Arabia is as per the Saudi Arabia standards. So getting this SABR, it's like a UL certification. Getting that before you get it through custom. That's a challenge in the KSA.
All right, so I think that's all the time that we have here for now. Thank you for everyone that joined us in today's webinar. Rob and Mustafa, thank you for sharing your insights and expertise. If you have any additional questions, you can contact us directly to the Crystal team. You can either contact us directly through Mustafa and Rob's contact information on screen, or you can reach us via Twitter or LinkedIn. And also, we're following up with a survey email about the webinar to ask some input on like the quality content and also like, topic suggestions that you might be interested in on our next webinar series. We would be appreciated if you can take a few minutes to fill it out, and that'll help us to bring you more exciting webinar next time. You all will receive as well a copy of the webinar link that you can watch it later, and then or you can share with your colleagues. And thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope you stay safe. All right.
Yeah, stay safe. Peace.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye.